Bonsoir et bienvenue à la Maison de l'intelligence artificielle. On est pour la première fois après plusieurs mois dans la possibilité d'avoir des personnes en présence. Et ça me fait plaisir parce que faire des conférences, c'est toujours qu'en visio, ce n'est pas un plaisir. Mais on a beaucoup aussi qui sont déjà en visio. Je suis très heureux de vous annoncer que ce soir, on va faire une autre belle conférence dédiée à les femmes et dans l'intelligence artificielle. C'est une thématique sur laquelle nous, on a déjà fait une autre conférence, on en refera une autre le mois de novembre, parce qu'on pense que c'est quelque chose sur lequel on a besoin de discuter et d'en parler. I would like to say thanks to all the people that will be part of this conference. I know that we have a very great people from all around the world. And for this reason, I would like to introduce Candice Johnson, that has been behind this conference for so much time, and I would like to thank you her particularly. Candice, to you.
Hello, everybody. It is so great to have this conference, and thank you for participating virtually or physically. We are excited to be sharing the wonderful work that women, experts around the world are doing in AI. A special hello to Mariya. Mariya, it's been so long since I saw you in Brussels. And we would like to, in particular, we're going to be listening to Commissioner Mariya Gabriel in just a few minutes, followed by great experts around the world, from India, from the United States, from France, from Italy, etc. But I would first like to, in particular, thank and welcome Monsieur Charles-Ange Ginesi. I think we all know that he is an unusual politician from the beginning, when he was told by Marco Landi that perhaps we should be doing AI and a woman in AI conference. He's been so supportive. And so, you know, Charles-Ange, we're so thankful to you and happy that you are with us today. And Charles-Ange will be speaking in French. We might get him to say a few words in English, and then the rest of the conference will be in English. Charles-Ange, President of the Alpes Maritimes, over to you.
Merci, Candice Johnson. Effectivement, je suis beaucoup plus à l'aise en français. Et je veux souhaiter, pour ce début de discussion, la bienvenue à Mariya Gabriel, qui est un exemple sur le plan de l'action féminine, de ce qu'elle a pu annoncer le 13 juillet 2021 avec le lancement d'un projet pilote Women Tech pour l'Union européenne. Et je dois dire que le nombre d'invités qu'il y a autour de Mariya, avec Brinda Kapoor, avec Daphné Marma, avec toutes celles et ceux qui sont autour de cet écran, et en m'excusant auprès de Marco, parce que j'ai bien compris que Marco n'était que peu favorable pour l'instant à la visio, même si la visioconférence est quelque chose qui est rentré dans les mœurs avec la Covid. Je suis d'accord avec lui pour dire que le contact physique est bien, mais quand l'emploi du temps ne le permet pas, eh bien, la visio est là pour nous permettre de saluer toutes celles qui sont ici regroupées sur un thème majeur que nous avons vécu dans la collectivité départementale. Et le sénateur Alexandra Borchio, qui interviendra dans quelques instants, le sait. Nous étions sur un collège de 54. Il n'y avait, il y a quelques années, que 4 femmes. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes en parité et il y a une femme sur 2. Et on voit que la vision de la collectivité a pris une autre démarche. Je ne dis pas que ce qui se faisait avant n'était pas bon, mais les choses se font différemment et probablement de façon beaucoup plus équilibrée. Eh bien, sur l'intelligence artificielle, je suis d'accord avec vous toutes, mesdames, pour dire que nous avons besoin de vous pour équilibrer notre vision du développement de cette intelligence que l'on qualifie d'artificielle et qui, dans quelque temps, probablement prendra une autre tournure et deviendra cette révolution du numérique qui apportera, je le souhaite, le meilleur pour les femmes et les hommes dans ce monde. Donc, la réflexion qui est la vôtre aujourd'hui apportera, comme certaines pionnières, on a vécu avec Marie Curie des moments exceptionnels. C'était une femme au début du siècle. Il y en a eu d'autres dans d'autres domaines d'activité, que ce soit l'aéronautique ou d'autres, qui ont témoigné que les dames ont une autre vision très complémentaire de celle des hommes. Alors, je suis sûr que les débats qui vont s'organiser aujourd'hui sur l'IA et les femmes apporteront de belles solutions. Voilà ce que je voulais vous dire en vous remerciant toutes. Et bien évidemment, Mariya, qui est l'invitée de marque de cette discussion sur les femmes et l'intelligence artificielle, et bien des débats très fructueux. Et en remerciant celui que je n'ai pas remercié à cet instant, Marco Lendi, qui a initié, impulsé cette affaire-là pour que le conseil départemental, pour que les Alpes Maritimes apportent une pierre contributrice à l'édifice de la construction européenne sur l'intelligence artificielle. Merci Marco.
So thank you so much, Charles-Ange. And, you know, as I say, thank you for your support. And thank you also for your enthusiasm to embrace these new technologies that are changing our world. And as you have rightly said, Mariya Gabriel has been really at the forefront when I already knew her when she was in her first commissioner time period, and she had already gathered all of the great women in tech in Europe, and we had some fun times together. And Mariya, you know, it just isn't surprising to see that you are back, you know, and pushing artificial intelligence, but really from a human-centric way. And so I'm not going to take the time away from your discussion because it is so important to hear from you. Mariya, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, dear Candice, Monsieur Jeunesse, dear ladies and gentlemen. First of all, it's a great pleasure for me to be together with you today. I see some familiar faces and I see some that I don't know, but what I know is that I can count on you and count on my force, on my energy to continue together with you, not only to speak about this topic, but to have actions and to see changes. So thank you very much for offering me this opportunity to speak about a subject that is, yes, dear Candice, is very dear to my heart. Because I would like to start by saying that we all know that digital technologies, including artificial intelligence, were prominent in providing solutions to face the COVID-19 pandemic. And we know that they are changing our lives beyond what we can foresee. The possibilities are immense, yet behind this opportunity lies a risk that must be well thought out. Artificial intelligence can reverberate and amplify existing inequalities. And to avoid this, we need to increase and diversify the pool of talents developing AI systems. I like very much this word talents, not only to talk about women, but to talk about talents. And we have the chance to make sure that this technology is human-centric, gender sensitive, and bias-free to benefit everyone more equally. Today, we all know women do not participate fully nor on equal grounds in the development of AI. Our latest She Figures data shows that in the European Union, less than 23% of ICT doctoral graduates are women, and in the active ICT workforce, women comprise a mere 17%. When these 17% participates, they earn 13% less per month while doing the same job. And data also shows that only 15% of innovative startups are founded or co-founded by women, and only 6% have all women founding teams. And we all know that without gender equality and diverse teams, we risk creating digital products and services that only perpetuate inequalities. And this is already the case for specific AI systems used, for example, to determine hiring decisions, credit scores, or healthcare needs. And we feed algorithms data that introduces existing biases, which then become self-fulfilling. So more women working in the AI industry, writing algorithms and feeding into product development will change how we imagine and develop technology and what challenges we want to solve. Evidence shows that gender diversity, particularly among leadership positions, drives increased productivity, profitability, and market value for companies. And we have an opportunity to address these imbalances by driving a greater focus on inclusion, empowerment, and equality. And here I want to share two examples of what the European Commission does to support a human-centric, gender-sensitive, bias-free AI. The first one is about how we support AI research and women entrepreneurs, and the second one is about education. First, when we talk about research, I would like to share with you that for the first time in Horizon Europe program, our biggest European program for research, public bodies, research and higher education institutions will need to have in place a gender equality plan to be eligible for European funding. To drive institutional change, one needs support and commitment from the management, and they need to lead by example. Believe me, that was not easy, especially with some part taking active contribution in Horizon Europe program. But I think that now it's obvious and it's clear that it's not a condition, it's our own potential that we need to unlock, and we have an excellent tool in our hands. Another novelty in Horizon Europe is that integrating a gender dimension in research and innovation content will become a requirement by default. Horizon Europe will also fund new research and innovation projects to tackle biases in artificial intelligence, and actually a call for proposals named Tackling Gender, Race and Other Biases in AI is right now open, and I very much encourage all of you to apply. We count on your innovative ideas. Another important thing, and that was mentioned already, but I'm sure that that's just the beginning, is the European Innovation Council and what we are doing together with the European Innovation Council. First, yes, we have now celebrated the achievements of women innovators through the European Prize for Women Innovators for more than 5 years. This is important from a public awareness point of view, and more specifically because young girls and women need role models they can relate with. And yes, inspiring and celebrating is excellent, but supporting is even better. That is why less than 2 months ago, I launched a new brand initiative, Women Tech EU. You know that this is a funding scheme to help women grow their deep tech companies. And in the first call, 50 women will receive financial support, first-class coaching and mentoring to help take their business to the next level. Over 136 women have already applied, confirming that we have such a vast untapped potential that needs the proper support. And I would like here really to mention that what is important on one side is, of course, the funding. But for me, what is equally important is these advice services, the coaching, the networking, because we need really to stay very united if you'd like to succeed in this mission. That was on my first point. Now it's good that we have these tools at our disposal, but that will be, of course, up to us to see how we can popularize them and how we can achieve better results together. The second part of my intervention is, of course, focused on education. I think that it's a great chance that for the first time, one commissioner is responsible for research and innovation and for education and youth. And here, of course, I would like to mention two of our programs. So on one side, Erasmus+, and the other side, we have the Digital Education Action Plan. And with the Digital Education Plan and the Erasmus+, we want to make the most out of the digital transformation, equip students with the right skills, and importantly, tackle girls' and women's underrepresentation in STEM fields. Allow me here to share with you some data. A recent study from the Gender Equality Institute shows that only 4 European countries, Bulgaria, Estonia, Malta, and Romania, where teenage girls express an interest in working as an ICT professional at 30. And even in these countries, the interest is meager, between 1% and 3%. In other European countries, almost no interest is noted. In contrast, between 3% and 15% of teenage boys across the EU aspire to become ICT professionals. This is hugely worrying, and it shows how strongly gender stereotypes influence subject choices. Later down the line, this leads to specific study and work fields persistently dominated by women or men, and undoubtedly increasing the number of girls in STEM is quite an old and tough nut to crack. That's why I think that here again, we have a very important tool at our disposal. And I would like to refer here to the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. The European Institute of Innovation and Technology has taken on this challenge, and it has, for example, recently launched the Girls Go Circular project to boost girls' digital skills through workshops focusing on the circular economy. And the Girls Go Circular will also host the first Women and Girls in STEM forum, which will bring together policymakers, researchers, and young students for mentorship opportunities and discussions on eliminating gender biases in STEM. So I would like really here to insist that our objective is somehow measurable, together with the European Institute of Innovation and Technology in the framework of the Digital Education Action Plan. We decided to offer training for 40,000 girls in AI by the next few years. But of course, it's up to us to popularize this information. And my challenge, why to stop to 40,000? We need much more. So in conclusion, I want really to multiply and step up this type of effort across Europe. We can and should do much more to increase girls' confidence to pursue STEM careers, to see the AI as a great perspective for their personal and professional development. And yes, definitely, together with my team, we are also determined to increase the number of women-led startups and support more women pursuing careers in the AI industry. And this is why I welcome new out-of-the-box ideas and best practices, especially from the private sector and civil society. To radically increase these numbers, we need the private sector on board. And this is why I very much welcome initiatives like the Women and AI Pact for a Responsible and Non-Sexist AI, initiated by Marine Raberin and Christine Denel. And I hope that the 16 companies that have signed this pact will soon double, and more companies will increase their focus on inclusion, empowerment, and equality in the AI industry. So I invite all of you to take action at your level to support more women in the development of artificial intelligence. And again, I will finish as I started. You can count on my firm support. Thank you very much.
Fabulous, fabulous. You know, Mariya, somebody's just put into the chat that, you know, so many times people talk about things, but we know that you will make it happen. And I also know that your time is limited, and we are so thankful to you. I would just like to perhaps make certain that you know that all of the women who are here and who are represented today, and we have also started a women in AI manifesto. We will join your Women in AI Pact, absolutely. We also have the president, or the Secretary General of the International Chamber of Commerce, so all for business around the world. I'm sure that he will be joining us later and that he will be helping us. I would also like to say that one of our entrepreneurs, or women entrepreneurs, has excellent data on Unbiased is the name of her company. So we will make certain and do this. And perhaps, Mariya, I can just also say that a very dear friend of mine who has been the vice chair of Ernst & Young, she always says that capital without mentorship is lost capital. And so I can assure you that all of us who are working in AI, working in technology as women, that we will be mentoring and supporting all of the initiatives that you are doing. You can count on us just as we are counting on you. Thank you so much, Mariya. And so, because we also have been able to get so many lovely people from around the world who also have time constraints, I am so happy to go immediately now to Francesca Rossi. Francesca is a leader in AI. Her research on constraint reasoning, on preferences is world famous. She is leading the ethics in AI around the world, where she will be president next year. She is a role model in every sense of the word, an academic role model, but also a business role model, because she is at IBM and leading their AI initiatives. So Francesca, we're so happy to hear from you, to hear what you are doing, and to share with us your thoughts of how we can use this tool to meet the world's biggest challenges. Francesca, mille grazie that you are here.
Thanks, Candice. And it's so great to see everybody here, but also especially Mariya, because I remember the very fun times that we had, you know, in that wonderful experience of the high-level expert group, you know, the really, still at this time, the most multi-stakeholder and independent approach that the government has put together to really address the AI ethics issues. And we have seen also how influential it has been, what came out of that group for the future regulations around AI. So that was really a wonderful experience. So yeah, so today I wanted to share a little bit about my research, but also to connect it to what also Mariya mentioned about the issues about gender, equality, bias, and AI ethics in general. So let me share my screen. I have a few slides to show. Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can, Francesca.
Okay, good. So, So this is what I will briefly talk about in my 15 minutes. So I will tell you my opinion about the current capabilities and limitations and also ethics issues around AI. I will give you some ideas about my current project about connecting cognitive theories of how humans make decisions in order to advance AI and overcome some of its limitations. And then I will pass to talk about AI ethics and what we, in general, the AI ethics community has been discussing and the solutions that have been put in place for addressing the AI ethics issues. So as you all know, AI has a lot of capabilities, especially in the recent years. Some tasks are addressed more effectively by AI systems than by humans. For example, here I mentioned just two of them. One is image interpretation, to understand what's in an image. And you see that already since 2015, the machines are more capable than humans in doing that. And the other graphs on the right-hand side has to do with natural language interpretation. So like interpretation of our vocal commands, for example, that we give to our phone and so on. So definitely there are many other things, but these are just two examples. So to say that AI's capabilities have really increased a lot recently. And because of that, AI is now very pervasive in our life. This is just some very, very incomplete list of applications of AI that you can see in everybody's life, almost everything we do during our day. So, however, there are some limitations. So current AI is so-called a narrow AI, meaning that it can do very well a specific task, sometimes even better than human being, but is not able to generalize, to be robust, to learn from one task solutions and to use that what is learned to another for solving another task. So in general, it's also is not able to explain why. Sometimes it's not able to explain why it's making certain decisions. And also there are issues about its societal impact, since it is so pervasive in our life. So here in these pictures, I mentioned a few examples about robustness. For example, the stop sign here, that one of them is interpreted correctly as a stop sign with 99% confidence, but the other one, just because it has a sticker on top of it, is not interpreted correctly and with a high level of confidence. On the left-hand side, you see a typical cartoon of a self-driving car that needs to make difficult decisions about running over some people or going against a wall, and then what is he going to make, who is going to make those decisions, and so on. So ethical issues. In the bottom left, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that, is an image that comes from a study about an algorithm that was predicting recidivism in the US criminal justice. And then that graph with those bars that you see are very small at the beginning, and then there is a very long bar there, is the need for data and energy from very successful but also very resource consuming AI systems. So that is also one of the concerns that people have around some of these AI developments. So again, a lot of capabilities, but also a lot of limitations. And that's why so many AI researchers are working on to overcome these limitations, and also societal impact to be considered. In my project, I'm trying to take what we know, even though we have a limited knowledge of how our mind works, because we know that there are some of these limitations of AI, actually they are not limitations for human beings. So human beings know how to be robust, know how to adapt to new environments with very little new examples of data, that we have capabilities that machines do not have. So the idea here is to take information about how we can have those capabilities from these cognitive theories of human decisions and to try to use them to advance AI capabilities. And in particular, the theory that we started from in our project is this called the Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel Prize, who put together this theory saying, well, but look, humans use these two big modalities. One that is fast and conscious, automatic. We use it 95% of the time to make our everyday decisions, almost in an unconscious way. And then there is this other modality, which is more careful, more about reasoning, logical inferences. And we use it very little because it's more expensive, but it's important to have it when we, for example, we care a lot about the success of our decisions. So the idea here is also that these system 1 and system 2, thinking fast and thinking slow modalities, we use them also when we make ethics, behavior and moral judgment. So we use a very fast way, system 1 to make a moral judgment usually, and then we use system 2 to rationalize it, to explain why we made that moral judgment. Or we use system 1 to apply very simple rules without reasoning, so a kind of deontology approach to moral judgment. And then system 2 when instead we want to be very careful about the consequences of an action. So there is a lot of relationship between the system 1 and system 2 modalities and our ethics reasoning. And so that can also be leveraged to bring it into a machine. So this is a picture that just shows our overall architecture of a system in AI that puts together system 1, this is the box in the middle, everything that in humans is kind of unconscious. So this is system 1 characterization of agents in AI. And then we have a system 2 characterization of other kinds of agents that are more careful about being correct. And then we have this blue box that basically arbitrates and decides which one is the best to use in every scenario. And then we have the green part, which are the models, meaning the knowledge that we accumulate over time about the world, about ourselves, what we did in the past, about what other agents are doing. And using this architecture, we are trying to understand whether putting together these system 1, system 2 agents and together with the metacognition is actually getting us to an AI system that makes better decisions. For example, when we have autonomous machines or machines where decisions cannot have a human in the loop because they need to happen very fast, better recommendations to human beings. So in the sense of having decision support system that may alert or nudge humans in helping them make better decisions, or in general, better human-machine teams. Okay, so now let me go to the AI ethics issues around AI. Most of these issues have to do one main question, which is the question about about trust in the AI's decisions. So that's why, for example, in the high-level expert group on AI, we put together the ethics guidelines for what we call trustworthy AI, because this notion of trust is very important. If we don't trust this technology and what the technology is doing, then we will not even adopt it widely, so we will not get even the positive things that the technology can bring. So the notion of trust is really very important. So here in one slide, I tried to summarize what I think are the main ethics issues. And one of them, the first one, of course, is that many of the most successful AI techniques need a lot of data to work well. So, of course, issues about data privacy and governance are immediately raised because usually these data also are personal data. So if I'm going to give my personal data to an AI agent in order to provide personalized services or solutions, I want to know what happens with that data. Second issue is that many AI techniques, deep learning or techniques, are often kind of a black box. So it's not easy to understand how they get to a certain decision starting from the input data. And this can be a significant problem for this issue of trust. Because if I don't even know why an AI machine gets to make some decisions or recommend recommending some decisions to me, then probably I'm not going to follow or listen to that black box. So issues about explainability and transparency here are very, very relevant. And the third one is that AI, as we know, can make decisions, can make predictions, decisions, or recommend decisions to human beings. So I need to make sure that the values that are important to me in those decision settings are also values that the AI can understand and can follow. Fairness, of course, is one of them. So bias freeness or bias mitigation is very important, but also any other value that may be important in a certain decision setting. The next one is about the statistical nature of some of the most successful AI techniques. And because of the statistical nature, there is always a small percentage of error that we have to be aware of. But if that error has to happen at some point, then questions of accountability arise. So who is responsible if something of a mistake is made by an AI system? Even if we all agree that that mistake was not because some programmer made a mistake, but because it is inherently statistical in the way that they are programmed. And we cannot eliminate that error. If we had a way to eliminate an error in doing something that does not have an error, we would do it, but techniques without statistical, being intrinsically statistical, actually do not have the same accuracy as the ones that are statistically based. The next one is about human and moral agency. AI can profile people by collecting data of them, and so can possibly even manipulate people's preferences. We don't want that to happen because this will impact human and moral agency. So questions about that and solutions about that are really central in the discussion. Also, as we said, AI is very pervasive, very dynamic. It changes, the capabilities change every day. So since it is so pervasive, a possible misuse can also have a larger and more impactful negative impact on society, and also it generates very fast transformations on society and in particular on jobs. So we need to understand how to catch up in some sense, how to make sure that we are in control of this transformation and we direct it into the trajectory that we like. Again, the last one is about the misuse, and of course this is something that is with every technology, while the other ones that I mentioned are specific to some AI capabilities and techniques. But of course, there is always a question of how are we going to use this technology for good or bad things. So the question of AI bias, as Mariya mentioned, is really very central and is very related to the gender issues. Here are some examples of a web search with grandmother, and you see they're all very similar grandmothers, all white, and so there is no diversity there, not because somebody made a mistake, but because the content that we upload on the web is not really balanced. And the next one is on online translations, where I took these two sentences. He's a nurse, she's a doctor. I asked the system to translate them to Turkish so that they lose the gender information. You see this big O is the same in the two sentences. And then I asked the system to actually translate them back in English. And you see that the system had to make a choice. And the choice is the nurse is a woman and the doctor is a man. Not because the system was intentionally programmed as bias, but because it relies on data that is not balanced, does not have the same amount. So here I go back to this idea of well, these two examples maybe are not very high-stake decisions, but there are examples where bias can actually be influential in very high-stake decisions. For example, here in this example of an algorithm that was used to predict recidivism, so the probability of recommitting a crime for people that had already committed a crime. And the algorithm was giving a score, so a high or low score for the risk of this person committing recidivism. So for example, for these two people, the left one had the low risk score, 3, and the right side had the high risk score. So the algorithm was analyzed and it was shown to be biased, but there needed to be a lot of care in really understanding whether it was biased or not. Because if you look at the overall accuracy of the two of the algorithm over the two categories of people, the white and the black people, you see that the accuracy is actually the same. So if you take as notion of fairness, the accuracy equality, you will say, oh, this algorithm is fair. But instead, if you look at the error rate, which was small and the same in the two categories, and you look at the error rate, but you look inside the errors, and you see that most of the errors for the white people are false negatives, and most of the errors for the black people are false positives. Positive means high score, where instead it should have been a low score, and negative is the opposite. So only if you use a notion of fairness that looks into the shape of the error rate, then you see that there is a discrimination here and bias. So it's important to understand what's the right notion of fairness to look at. And that's why addressing AI fairness and bias is so complex. It's not just having an algorithms. Yes, technical solutions are very important, but also educating the developers, training them, giving them new methodologies and that are easy to adopt, build the governance frameworks on top, consult with all the stakeholders that are involved in that decision setting, and finally, and also more related to the topic of this panel, is about team diversity and education. So the more diverse the teams are, and the better it is in terms of addressing bias issues. So some statistics, global and the US, similar to what Mariya said. I mean, we don't need to go in detail. It's obvious that women are not there, are not in very high percentages in the studies of technical disciplines and even in the workforce. So it's important to have more role models, more incentives, programs, awareness, prizes, as Mariya mentioned, and education in general about women. I talk about role models because personally, when I was for 25 years a professor of computer science and AI at the University of Padova, I was seeing that all the women, all the student women that wanted to do a master or a PhD were coming to me because I was the only woman full professor of computer science in my department. So that I saw firsthand how important it is to have role models in every setting, in particular in that academia. But not only we need to make AI gender fair, but also AI can help in making our system, our society more gender balanced. So this is one example of a gender equity track at the AI for Good conference by ITU. But then I'll give you another example of something that IBM put together where the technology itself and the way it is designed can actually address issues that are particularly relevant for women, such as domestic violence. So not only we can make sure that the technology is gender sensitive, but the technology itself can help our society to be more gender sensitive.
Francesca, this is so wonderful. You're so passionate.
Let me conclude that this is my last slide.
Great.
I just want to show the picture of everything that we do at IBM around AI ethics, governance, principles, toolkits, a lot of external partnerships. And I want to mention in particular, to connect again to the topic here, that women are actually leading roles at IBM around AI ethics. So for example, myself and another woman are in charge of the governance of the internal AI ethics board. There is a woman in charge of the research on trustworthy AI. So really women play a central role inside this very large corporation in shaping the future of AI and how to address these AI ethics issues.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Thank you. Francesca, thank you for your passion, for your leadership, for your being a role model. We just lost you. Please come. Yeah, please. Oh, yeah, I was going to say, please come back. And, I think that what I liked so much about your presentation, and I know that you also have to, you purposely changed your schedule so that you could be with us and that you have another speech to give, but certainly the fact that this has been very transparent, it's been very clear, it's been able to, you have put some light into these black boxes, which I know we're trying now to make white box AI. And I think you showed, so many times we talk about conflicts of interest, and, in business, we say that, conflicts of interest exist all over the place. They just need to be managed. Here you have shown us these are the problems with AI, but here are some solutions that we can, apply. And so I think this is just fabulous. Thank you for all of the work that you are doing to help make our world better. And fairer and more just. So thank you so much, Francesca. And it seems like it's a perfect segue to now go to our Secretary General of the International Chamber of Commerce, John Denton. I'm very proud to say that I'm the Vice Chair of the Institut EuropIA, and I'm also a member of the Executive Board of the International Chamber of Commerce, the business organization for the world. John, I hope that you can put your video on
well, Candice, I have to say that having done 5 speeches today using video, for some reason my video refuses to cooperate.
Okay, so listen, John, don't worry. We will just
put up an avatar. Put up an avatar.
So exactly, and so really, John Denton, as the Secretary General of the ICC, is truly leading and encouraging and helping businesses around the world understand what AI as a tool can do to help solve some of our major problems, and also at the same time to make certain that we have the input from all genders, all races, and that we are trying to have this human-centric AI. So John, I'm sorry I'm not seeing you, but I know that your words will be golden. Thank you.
Well, I draft like an angel, so hopefully I'll sing like an angelic. Listen, Candice, thank you so much. And by the way, Francesca, thank you very much for that fascinating introduction. I think a challenge to us all as well. It's amazing to hear what you're doing. And I love the term human-centric, because it's something that really is at the heart of what we worry about, that if people are not human-centric, then all the good ideas we have will actually just pass all the rest of our brothers and sisters by, and we want them to be involved, and we want things to be designed around them as well. And I think we all know, those of us gathered around here knows the positives around AI, and we're great believers in the transformative nature and transformative opportunities. We're great believers in the promise for enhancing decision-making process. We're great believers in the enhanced knowledge that will be made available through applying analytics. We also think there are challenges, and I think one of the benefits of this kind of discussion today is that we can honestly talk about some of those challenges with people who see them as challenges rather than as problems. Challenges about how we can ensure the role of humans, ensure the necessary transparency, and the big one from my point of view, which is around inclusivity itself. And so to harness these benefits and mitigate harm, organizations are actively considering guidelines, principles, and standards. And so the ICC, and again, we're very privileged to have Candice as a board member, we work in partnership with business, governments, international organizations. And we're doing that because we want the guidelines that develop to be actually meaningful and capable of being applied. And when we talk about guidelines, what are the principles that inform them? From our point of view at the ICC, we believe when we talk about artificial intelligence systems, that they should always be they should first of all be benevolent, and we use that word advisedly. They should be designed to benefit people and the planet by driving inclusive growth, sustainable development, and well-being. Secondly, they should be human-centric, going back to that great term that's been applied here. They should be designed in a way that respects the rule of law, human rights, democratic values, and diversity, and they should include appropriate safeguards. For example, enabling human intervention where necessary. We saw some of that with some of the photographs we put up before, to ensure a fair and just society. Thirdly, they should be transparent. AI systems should be explainable, explicable, and have responsible disclosure around them to ensure that people understand AI-based outcomes and can challenge them. Fourth, they should be secure. I think this is really important. AI systems must function in a robust, secure, and safe way throughout their life cycles, and potential risks should be continually assessed and managed. And finally, they should be accountable. Organizations and individuals developing, deploying, or operating AI systems should be held accountable for their proper functioning in line with the above principles. So we believe that AI systems should be seen and must be developed in order to be perceived of by the population as trustworthy. And we think they will be trustworthy if they're developed along these principles, because that will generate positive outcomes for society and provide new opportunities for businesses to create value. However, when these technologies are not properly harnessed and implemented, they can also create new risks. And some of these risks, if left unaddressed, will hinder further innovation. And that's our big concern and progress, as they in turn continue to undermine the trust necessary for the adoption and use of AI technologies. So we want a high trust environment. We want high trust processes to enable effective development of AI. But we want that because we want more to happen. We actually don't want the AI systems and processes to be undermined by the loss of confidence and trust by citizens. And so that's why really important to actually build these along these 5 principles, high trust. So one of the major challenges in AI, and I think we were just discussing this in the opening comments before, is the danger of transferring biases from the analog world to the digital world. And we know that the best way to fight bias is by having diversity across a number of criteria to ensure a wide range of perspectives and lived experiences are incorporated into the design and implementation of the system. Data shows that companies with diverse and inclusive cultures are betting on fueling productivity and innovation within their workforces, translating that into better products, a competitive edge over peers, and improved sales and profit. This holds just as true in the AI field. A more diverse workforce is better equipped to identify and remove AI biases as they interpret data, test solutions, and make decisions. But unfortunately, there is still a persisting gender gap in AI. The Deloitte report that we've been looking at closely shows that in 2019, women accounted for 22% of all AI and computer science PhD programs in North America, just 4% higher than the same statistical category from 2010. So we have work to do. And it's imperative that this trend is rapidly corrected. A team with diverse perspectives is just simply better at challenging assumptions and identifying problems to solve with AI, as well as challenge assumptions, weed out unconscious biases, and identify blind spots within an AI system to help ensure it has a positive impact on as many members of the population as possible. So we need to ensure an organizational culture that reflects and celebrates and sees the value in gender diversity, and hopefully that's what we have seen us doing at ICC, but also what we're seeing as propagating across the world, across business. We need to go beyond our own organizations, and businesses should also support the skilling and education of women in STEM fields and in AI in particular, and promote a culture of continuous learning to provide women interested in AI professional development opportunities to unlock their potential. And of course, we need to be sure to provide female role models. And I think we'll be seeing a few of those on the call today, because that's actually what helps counter myths and negative stereotypes that women and girls don't belong in STEM fields, and to inspire those on this path to persevere. Anyone who's heard Candice's story knows how true it is that role models make a difference. That's why ICC partnered with Institut EuropIA, and that is why I'm glad to be here with you today. And I'm sorry I can't be visually present, but hopefully I'm audible to you, and hear your perspectives and learn from your experience to ensure that businesses worldwide develop and deploy trustworthy AI technologies that work for all, that are actually human-centric. Thanks so much for having me today, and great to be part of this conversation.
Thank you so much. You really just brought it all together, and our lovely team at the Maison at the Intelligence Artificielle found a very good photo of you so that we could kind of envisage you, and that was great. And, it was so important to us, and we're so thrilled to be partnering with the ICC, with the International Chamber of Commerce and the Institut EuropIA, not only on this conference, but just going forward, because businesses, as you say, need to be accountable. This is very, very clear. And I'm thrilled that we now will be going to some more fabulous role models after having had Mariya and Francesca. And I'm delighted to introduce Serena Villata, Serena is the chair of the, she has the chair of the artificial intelligence at the University of the Nice Sophia Antipolis Côte d'Azur. She is a specialist in computational reasoning, and Serena, you know, Marco Landi also said I should say that you're Italian. So please, we're looking forward to, you know, hearing again from a woman who is at the top of her field and has, you know, led the path for many other women to come in AI and in high tech.
Thanks a lot, Candice, for the nice presentation. So I should be able to share my slides, I think. Get for confirmation from Albert Einstein that I think it makes it clear what's the relation between machines and humans, and how this is what I think it should be artificial intelligence as well. So computer has some advantages with respect to us. So they are capable of doing some certain activities better than us. So they are fast, they are accurate, but they are stupid. Okay. So what we have as a difference is that we are slow, so they can do computations faster than us. We are much more inaccurate, but we are brilliant. So the idea is that together we can be powerful beyond imagination. So this is what I think it's a very important message. So being able to build artificial intelligence, human-centered artificial intelligence, to tackle the main societal challenges that are in front of us. And we can address them only, I think, with the aid of these technologies, of course, by putting our, let's say, humanization on that. So following on what also Francesca presented, I will show you two examples of societal challenges that are very important and that they have become even more important with the COVID pandemics. So the first one is disinformation and fake news. So this is obviously an issue that's something which is clearly in front of us. We have seen many different examples of fake news and disinformation spread online. So there is the way to use AI technologies to detect and to moderate such harmful content, such as deleting this content, reducing its visibility, and trying to promote content from verified sources. So why do you need first these AI technologies for doing that? Because of course we as humans are more than able to do this. So, because actually we cannot scale up to the number of information that are posted every day on the web. So we need some help on that. Of course, there are issues that are those that has been also underlined in Francesca's talk. The first one is that, of course, these technologies can make errors, so they are not perfect. We should be fully aware of that. So they can classify, for instance, fake news. I'm mainly working on text, so usually I'm biased on that, and I always provide examples on text. So if there is a message which is posted on social networks with a high degree of irony, well, it's highly probable that this machine will not be able to say this is an ironic message, but they can classify erroneously. Then there can be algorithmic biases. So there can be bias in the data that these technologies are processing. In the algorithm itself, as it is conceived, that is why I fully support the fact that developers should be also trained, should be made aware of the fact that the way they write their programs can be biased. And this bias then is of course mirrored in the results of these technologies. And then there is the usual suspect, so the transparency, explainability of these decisions, because if we point out that a certain piece of content is disinformation, and for instance, we decide to automatically delete it, okay, well, we should be quite sure about that. We should be able to explain why we classified it as disinformation. Why we need to explain? Because actually we are, in a way, violating the right to freedom of expression if we go back to our fundamental values, okay? So if we delete a content of information, we need to explain why we did that. So there are a number of issues in this scenario, like the fact that we should ideally need human final validation about the decision that is proposed by the AI. The fact that there is this right to freedom of expression, which should be always be taken into account, and also which are the authorities which may decide what to delete, what to promote. Okay? Because these are algorithms, but these algorithms are put in place by different institutions, by private companies, and so on. So who has the authority to decide which content can be deleted or not? So if we go to the next one, there is hate speech, is another scenario which I think it's very important. We have a number of examples in front of us about the fact that identifying automatically this kind of content would be very valuable. So identifying and classifying also this kind of content is important, like for instance, misogyny, racism, sexism. And here I think it's also an example where gender diversity is very important in promoting this kind of research. Why we need that? Again, same reason as for disinformation. So we need that because actually we cannot scale with the number of messages that are posted everywhere on the main social networks, for instance, containing hate speech. We cannot just check them manually, each of them. The issues are many. So first, when we tackle a problem like this one, which is important, which is a high impact on the society, we need to define what is the task we want to tackle. So what is hate speech? So how we define this kind of content in order to detect it, because we should tell the machine what we mean by hate speech, not only by examples. Then, of course, there could be errors, as I said before. I mean, this is an issue also for this kind of scenario, also because it implies to work with the teenagers' jargon, which is not straightforward to be understood. We need to take into account emoticons, for instance, and many other elements. Biases are always there, so it's still there, and transparency as well. Here it is even more, sensible, because here you have that you say that something is hate speech. It may involve, let's say, young people, teenagers, so you should be quite certain about what you are saying. So if you are really pointing and saying this is a problematic post, for instance. And again, here there are also issues like privacy. So when there are hate speech issues on, for instance, messages, like private chats, so how is the privacy? Where we can go, okay, on that? The fact of having the non-discrimination. So all these examples, these two examples, I think illustrate well two societal challenges that are in front of us, that are here now, that we should tackle, and actually that we can tackle by means of human-centered AI. And we should always keep an eye on our values and on the ethical challenges that these raise, because all these benefits that we can gain with AI technologies has a price in a certain sense. So we need to decide where is the compromise when we take it. And I want to underline also that these two applications are two applications which are multidisciplinary. This is also very important. So AI is no more only mathematics and computer science. AI is many other disciplines all together, and the importance of this discipline should be recognized everywhere, and we should also really underline the importance of these other disciplines because they have a huge impact on the technologies we are developing. And I conclude with just a small overview on what is my own work, my own research, which is artificial argumentation. By argumentation, I mean the way we discuss with each other, the way we propose arguments in natural language. Every time we discuss, we are argumenting, okay? And having this argumentation for and with humans. So there are a number of topics let's say I care a lot about. I want to just briefly present them. So the collective deliberation and policy making, how to enhance that, how to enhance the participation of people in this collective deliberation by means also of AI technologies. The fact that just identifying disinformation and hate speech is not enough. If we want to counter this kind of content, we cannot just say this is disinformation, this is hate speech, because of course people that are involved, they can say okay, yes, but then they actually don't care. We need in a way to convince them that this is not the good way, that this is a fake information. We should explain why, and this can be done through counter argumentation, counter narratives that we can generate in order to make them change their own opinion. And then there is also propaganda detection, which is another main topic. I apply it in political debates, so it's also an interesting, let's say, platform to try to test these technologies. It can be applied also to newspapers, for instance. And then, of course, there is, again, explainable AI applied to medicine, which is always a topic of main interest. And I think I will conclude here. Thanks a lot.
Oh, Serena, thank you so much. Absolutely. I think what is so exciting in both yours and Francesca's, speeches is the fact that we are putting together AI and the human brain. We are not saying it's one or the other. And I think this is a trend that is very, very, coming out more and more, and is really being brought to the fore by women. And with this, I'm delighted now to, it was very important to me to show our next generation of fantastic women entrepreneurs. And I'm very pleased to introduce Vrinda Kapoor. Vrinda is from India. She's in New Delhi, and she is one of the leading women in AI, quite frankly, not only in India, but in the world. She's been recognized by the United States Department of Defense, the India military, and she's a great entrepreneur. So Vrinda, thanks so much for sharing what you do with us.
Thank you so much, Candice, for that very warm welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So I'm not a computer scientist. I'm not a data analyst. And I want to start my talk by saying that to emphasize that you don't need to be an engineer or even know how to write any code to be in AI today. I perceive the world around me, comprehend the complexity of processes that make up our daily lives, and I'm able to break that down to understand where machines and AI can impact our society. Now, that is the space my company, 114 AI, works in. Just a quick fact, the CEO and CTO of our company are both women. And we're taking along a team of men who believe in that vision. And that vision is simple, very similar to what some of our speakers have spoken about today. The ability to reason, to infer, to deduct is at the cornerstone of human cognition. And that is the next step to unlocking the value of AI. Our belief is that machines with augmented intelligence will be one of the most substantial next generation advances in this field. Now, an interesting metaphor I came across recently for machine cognition is background-foreground separation. Conceptually, there is a sea of overwhelming data being produced in an increasingly dynamic world. Technologies that relied on connecting the dots are no longer sufficient. There is a need to move a step further. Through this high volume, high veracity, and high variability of data, we need to enable machines to first find the dots and then complete the entire picture. So the image on the screen is a fantastic tool to demonstrate that concept. Now, at a first glance, it is merely the image of a tree bark. But if you look closely, there is a great tree frog camouflaged in that bark. Now, that animal has evolved to become virtually indistinguishable from its environment, but a seasoned expert would be able to identify it right away. That is the kind of knowledge that we need to impart to create those cognitive thinking pathways for AI. Now, Gary Marcus and Ernest Davis use a really interesting image on the cover of their book, Rebooting AI, Building Artificial Intelligence We Can Trust. Now, this is a sweet image of an AI-powered robot that steps into water. But fundamentally, what we see is that most of the achievements that we've made so far in AI have been in closed systems with a finite set of rules governing it, making it too narrow a framework to achieve actual intelligence in such a messy world. Real data is messy, it's complex, it's dynamic. A truly intelligent system will encompass the ability to sense the environment, analyze patterns, and use logical inference to augment intelligence. Smart and autonomous machines of the future will necessarily require a method to mimic human intelligence and decision-making pathways. Now, the first step to that process, as has been articulated by all of the speakers before me, is to get to a state where human and machine teaming is a reality, where machines are able to do what they do, which is distill through petabytes of data and bring to the forefront critical information, enabling the human in the loop to make data-backed and expert-vetted decisions at the click of a button. This also requires the ability to capture and codify expert knowledge, giving the machine the intelligence it needs to reason through these complex pathways. This brings us to step 2, where analytics is built on symbolic and sub-symbolic processing, which include things like common sense reasoning, background knowledge, episodic memory, and institutional memory. We use the cues from this sub-symbolic process and disambiguate them using reasoning techniques to get to that final cognitive state. One of the most important components, something that everybody in this conference has touched upon, that will define both the success and the viability of superintelligent machines is trust. As the technology matures, AI will be used to provide decision support to doctors, to space operators, to researchers, to governments and militaries, all looking for tools to leverage the tremendous amount of data being thrown at them, reduce their cognitive burden, and make better decisions. By focusing on provenance, tractability, and explainability of AI, we can move away from the current state of black box decision-making towards a world where we can all begin to trust the decisions coming from these machines. This is a necessary step before we even think about autonomous machines in our homes and on our streets. So to us, the next generation of AI is going to consist of a few things. Can we reduce the friction of adoption? Can we stretch the boundary of what can be achieved in a low-code or a no-code environment and drive even bigger value? Second, can we enable machine-to-machine hyperautomation or redirect the limited number of data scientists in the workforce away from the mundane and towards the more complex problems at the top of the value chain? Can we start to enable augmented intelligence or create methodologies for machines to think, reason, infer, and apply logic to enhance their productivity in complex operations? And finally, can we build an AI paradigm that inspires trust by establishing those cognitive pathways to maximize transparency and show provenance of decision-making. Shown on the screen is an infographic of our work at 114 AI. We're building a platform that is able to leverage data, analytic tools, and expert knowledge in order to get to cognition or augmented intelligence. The tool is a no-code environment which acts as the glue or the information architecture to fuse data, automate data transformation, capture expert knowledge, set up those analytic pipelines, and now use logical inference to enable the extraction of causal inferences from unstructured data. The entire pipeline uses innovative knowledge graphs, something which was again spoken about earlier today, providing explanations for each step of that inferencing process with a design that enables transparency and builds trust. Our goal is to break down the barriers and enable AI, reduce the friction on uptake and utilization, enable the development and scale of analytic pipelines, and use data to drive decision-making in this no-code environment. Our vision is to make AI ubiquitous in decision-making. And while this would unlock tremendous value across industries, it would also allow focus on areas of research that are not well-funded, that may not have the commercial value to justify the high spend that they would need to currently leverage AI. One such area especially close to my heart is for drug discovery or the repurposing of existing drugs to treat important and often dilapidating clinical conditions, which may not make financial sense. These technologies have long been touted for their promise to make the hunt for new drugs cheaper and more effective. The development of tools that can reduce the cost associated with trial and error, narrow down the list of candidate therapies, and reduce failure rates between phase 1 trials and regulatory approvals would have a substantial impact on some of the lower hanging fruit of clinical therapies. And with that, I conclude my talk for today. A big shout out and an emphatic thank you to the wonderful Candice Johnson for putting together such an incredible group of women for this conference. I am honored to be a part of it.
Well, we are honored to have you, Brenda. And, you know, I think when we talk about diversity, we have to also make certain that we have international diversity. And so you have brought a whole other perspective to our International Women in AI conference today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think this is a perfect segue now to Daphne Marnard, who is from Sophia Antipolis and southern part of France. Alpes Maritimes, who is sponsoring our conference today. Daphne, I'm going to give this, we're running a little bit late, so I know that you'll do your best to have a fantastic presentation in 7.5 minutes. Thank you.
Ça marche. Bonsoir, merci Monsieur Jeunesse déjà d'avoir permis à Umbias d'être né dans les Alpes-Maritimes et à Sophia Antipolis de nous supporter et de supporter notre start-up et une femme qui est CEO dans la tech et dans l'IA, ce qui est assez rare, vous l'aurez compris. Grazie Marco Landi and thank you Candice to allow me to express myself on what a woman does in intelligence artificial and as a CEO in intelligence artificial. So just let me share my screen. Okay, here. So, Irena, we share the same conviction, I guess, and the same images. and Brindra, I'm not an engineer also. I'm an anthropologist, in fact. And I'm working independently for more than 10 years in tech and in the development in technology from a user centricity. So humanities are the core of my job. So I came to AA through a meeting with a data scientist that needed to integrate the humanities into the development of his algorithm. So in the few minutes available, I would like you to show what women in the humanities field came to intelligence artificial. Okay, today we are very agree that data science is not only made of computational or statistical or information science, but also needs and integrates humanities as such as linguistics, systemic, semiotic, and anthropology. I will show you the impact of this integration of humanities and in a sense of a woman in our research and development and how it impacts our development of our product. So from the research point of view, we started with true principles that are not really taken into consideration today in data science. The first one is that quality is not an emergent property of quantity. This means that performance does not only come from the volume, but also from the quality of the data and the algorithm design. In LLP, in particular, a lot of energy is now spent on making the biggest models from China, from Google, from everybody. They want to do the biggest possible, but very little work on the representativeness of this model and the condition of selecting the data into them. So this strong belief is that the larger the learning corpus is, the better the performance is. And it's true in a sense, but it's very limited vision because it is not taken into account what also eventually create intelligence, the particularity and the diversity. The second principle that conduct our research is pragmatic. For us, pragmatic is the key. The pragmatic in EA is, and in anthropology also, is the context of the emergence of a signal. A signal could be a sentence, an image, a picture. And we strongly believe that is the future progress of EA. We spend a lot of time thinking about the purpose of our algorithm. First, we don't stop on the 100% of performance. We always introspected. What should our algorithm be used for? What does it need to do according to the principle of the right proportionality of research to needs? And what can it solve, bring, and what it cannot, in fact? Then the pragmatic is also the context of the data that the algorithm is not able to capture. The context of elocution, for example, the symbolic context, the culture behind a signal that a human native of a culture will know instinctively and you know how we interpret it, but the machine can do not that for the moment. And then our third principle for our research is ethic is tangible. And for that, I will just show you something. So Unbias is a startup. And in France, we can create what we call une société à mission, thanks to la loi Pacte 2019. And this mission is in the statute of the society of our company. And our mission is the development of a peaceful society. So what it does mean is to contributing of the promotion and appropriation and development of ethical tools for data science, is structuring the certification of ethical tools and eco-designing its solution. So the notion, before to show you Unbias, but just a few words on peaceful society. What does it mean? It's important to us because it's another way to talk about ethic, in fact, less from a moral point of view, but more in the pragmatic point of view. So this question of peaceful society is how can technology help the emergence of tools that help us humans to live well together? So now I would like to tell you about the fact that I am an anthropologist and the impact of that on the development of our product. Anthropology has taught me how to make cultures interact, as I mentioned. And AI is not just a techie deal, not anymore. We have to take a real step from this culture of EA like a technical culture, just like an object. It's had to be more with human things, and we have to integrate a lot of another science and skill, and probably soft skill too. That is why the discovery phase of the creation of a new product for us is just an algorithm, is very important. We spend a lot of time talking to scientists from other fields and ours, to the civil society, activists, and almost of potential consumer, even before to have the concept of the algorithm. So to finish, let me introduce unbiased. So sorry for the non-tech people, but it's just something that's maybe very abstract for you. But this is the first technical solution to be able to reduce, to tackle the gender bias into the model. So by reducing the bias intensity, we drastically reduce the discriminatory risk, in fact, of the bias. It is known that models reproduce and amplify bias, because we need bias, in fact, to have a good information. But the problem is the amplification of this bias. So even we have a lot of good intention, building a responsible and an efficient model is quite difficult for us. So this algorithm processes as a statement. As you see, the little point are sentences, in fact, and he just evaluates if this sentence is more than female gender or from male gender. He reduces the intensity of the treatment given to a man compared to a woman, or the quite opposite. And what is important is that he preserves the linear property of the sentence. So the inference is still understandable. And he preserves the statistical properties of your models and the semantics of your corpus. It's totally scalable. It's built for very high speed and scale up without variance. So, and this algorithm is eco-designed and totally transparent, auditable. So there is an extremely low computational cost and energy cost. So beyond checking all the boxes of the responsible design, there is no excuse for data scientists to test our algorithm. And that is very important for us to do that. So just to finish, let me show an example of how this algorithm can work more concretely. For example, this is the chatbot of INSEE, that is a statistic tool of the French state. So, for example, sorry, is it French? But en cas de maladie des enfants, les mères peuvent prendre un congé garde d'enfants. He changed the word mothers in parents, which is more natural. Qui est le chef de famille? He changed the phrase, the sentences. Qui prend les décisions pour la famille? Who is making decision for the family, and not what is the family chief? Chief, it's a masculine word in French. And you know this tool, Google Trad, and what Google Trad said, they said the nurse entered the rooms and gave me my medication. You understand that the nurse is a man, but when you translate it in French, he transformed the nurse into a woman. So, and I will stop that because I see Candice, so I think that my time's up. Thank you for listening, and I hope that I show you what a woman can do in EA very concretely. Thank you.
But it's wonderful, and thank you so much for being so flexible, Daphne. We also asked Daphne to speak in English. She did a great job, and I just would also like to say, you know, besides having all of these wonderful women with us today, something has also happened which we hadn't planned, and that is that indeed, we will be putting Daphne in touch with Mariya Gabriel, because it's obvious that her work is so important to what Mariya is doing.
And we are inserting into the call European ones calls that she mentioned, and we need support. So thank you.
We're going to give it to you. Of all things, when Vrinda in our prep call was talking with Francesca said, I want to know more about you, Vrinda. And with Barbara, just recently, Barbara and I are working in space. And so I was also able to introduce her to the Fortune magazine, who will be doing an article on women in space. So, already the putting together, the mentoring. And so with that, I will turn to Barbara Belvisi of Interstellar Lab. She is from, as I say, not only California and France, but also from space. Barbara, over to you.
So I'm the founder and CEO of Interstellar Lab, and so we're a startup. We're 3 years old. We're a bit less than 20 people right now, mostly based in Paris, and we do hardware, software, and we use a bit of artificial intelligence right now, and we're planning on using much more in the future. I personally also have been involved in several organizations supporting women in AI. So one is called actually Women in AI. The second one is called The Good AI, and I'm a member. Interstellar is actually a member of it, and all the point is how we can use artificial intelligence to develop solutions to tackle the different SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals. And so Interstellar, so we're not an AI company, but we use AI in developing our product. So very quickly, so in terms of the system we're developing, so what we do, we call them deployable system. So we've been developing environmentally controlled module. So those modules are the domes that you can see right now on the presentation that you can plug in together to recreate completely closed environments that are regenerative. So we can recycle the air, the water, and the waste, and create the perfect climatic conditions so plants can grow without using too many resources, water, energy, and all of this. So what we've been developing here is a station, so it's combining a different system. To develop such a station, we had first to start with a very scientific and mathematical approach, where we started with the basic requirements. Okay, so if we need to feed a group of 10 people, what do we need when it comes to oxygen, when it comes to water, when it comes to food, when it comes to space to live? And then based on all those requirements and calculation, then we've been able to design the system and what you can see right now. And so, of course, if you want to feed a group of 10 people within a small structure, you need several units. One unit to bring the food. So that's the aeroponics units that you can see right now. One unit to grow a greenhouse, because some plants are not growing in aeroponics, and also to meet some psychological needs, human needs, we needed to recreate a very natural environment. And last one is a treatment unit where we can treat the water and the waste. Of course, the habitat units. And all of this was we designed it based, it was a very mathematical approach at the beginning. So after designing this and going through, the stoichiometric equations, the scientific model and the requirements, and then that we knew how much space we need, then we've been focusing on designing the hardware. And so the first hardware that we've been focusing on, the first pod is called a biopod. So this is what you can see right now. And this is actually an advanced greenhouse, a completely enclosed greenhouse where we recycle the air. We use very few water compared to other existing indoor farming system, and we recreate the environments for plants to grow. So application, it's on Earth regarding new agricultural system. It's for biodiversity preservation because we can grow pretty much anything inside the biopod. And in space, as Candice said, the application will be to design to put on the moon and in the future on Mars a system that will be able to grow plants and so to fulfill some of the nutritional requirements of astronauts. So it's a very long-term vision, but so one step after the other, we're getting there. So here you can see more images of the biopod, so which is an inflatable dome structure. It's 11 meter long, 4.5 meter high, 6 meter wide. It has an airlock at the entrance, and everything is fully automated. It's signed and it's designed to grow plants. I will try to get to our topic here, which is the AI. But so first we use mathematical model to be able to design and to size a system, and then we're also using a mathematical mathematical approach basically to run several simulations. So if you want to know what you're going to grow inside and to have a system that is fully automated, you need first to build a prediction model to understand how plants going to grow, how much CO2 they need, how much O2 they will give back, how much water they will transpire. And so this is where algorithmic can help designer, architect, and engineer in designing and sizing the system. So what you can see here is the inside of the greenhouse, which gives you a little bit more understanding of the product we're building. And so if you want a product that is fully automated, you need to have a kind of a mission control, if I can say, but you need to access what's going on inside the pod from a computer. And so a big part of what we're doing is to run the crop simulation to develop scientific models. So we forecast how plants going to grow. So we know when to spray water, we know how to change the temperature, the humidity. And then at the same time is to receive real-time data from the sensors that are inside the biopod. So we can directly control what's going on depending on what's happening real time versus the simulation. So it's this approach of having a simulation model and then getting the real-time data and then matching with the intelligence so we can find the best, we can trigger at the right time all the hardware that we have inside, the atmospheric, the water, the lights, the nutrients, which is, usually it's humans who are doing that. And here we're trying to replace that by a form of artificial intelligence. The first application of, so right now we're focusing on building the first full-scale dome. So we have several small prototypes where we've been testing the automation, we've been testing the sensors. But one first application of artificial intelligence, how we use it, was to design a crop selection algorithm. So if you want to know how the plant's going to grow inside the biopod, you need to predict it. And so to do that, we developed a software where you put the requirements, so how many people you want to feed, and the algorithm is coming up with the best solution. So this is one of the focus on how we've been applying artificial intelligence to what we do. The problem that we're trying to solve here on this specific case was to select the plants. We want to grow inside the biopod, and we wanted to minimize the space. We wanted to optimize how we're going to use the resources, so the water, the air, and the light. And we want to, and the objective is really to fulfill some nutritional goal. And so the approach that we had for that was to create a simulation model for plant growth, which we leverage on, a lot of publication, especially some publication from NASA, who's been working for the past 30 years in doing simulation of plant growth under environmentally controlled environments. And then we combine a cost function and a genetic algorithm to be able to come up with the best plan on which plants we want to put where and how we're going to grow them. So we end up with a solution which is pretty much a plant selection and a scheduling plan. And so for the user, he has nothing to do, just to receive our recommendation, and the plants will grow by themselves, plus we select them. So very, I mean, I'm not sure I'm going to have a lot of time to dig in, but here you can see a little bit more about our crop selector software, which is combining scientific approach, so the energy cascade model, which is a plant modelization model, a crop database, and we put the parameters, which is minimizing the surface, minimizing the water consumption, how to diversify the food, and how to meet all the nutritional requirements. And then you can see the cost function it puts there in this slide, but basically the algorithm is keep on trying, optimizing all the time by selecting plants, understanding, planning how they're going to grow, how much nutrients they will provide, and then organizing so we can maximize the output and minimize the input, which is what we need to do right now, regarding climate change, food production, water consumption, and all of this. I'm not sure we have the time to digging. Yeah.
So Barbara, I don't think we have the time, but I think everybody has gotten the idea. And maybe, the thing that is coming out is that you really are, creating trust, because if you're going to eat this food, whether it be on space, whether it be, in the desert, it is very clear that that I trust you to, you know, put together something that is going to be nutritious and feed, you know, people wherever they are. And this is very, very exciting. And so I would just like to ask you to please share with everyone just some of the people who are using now or who have said that they would like to use your biopods and Interstellar Lab.
Of course, it's actually a very diverse crowd. So obviously we have the space agencies we're working with. So we work with NASA, we work with the European Space Agency, with the CNES. We're starting a new program with them actually next week. So those are the space players, let's say. And now for the terrestrial application, we have 3 types of customer. The first one are scientific research institutes, because they want to test and to find the best climatic conditions to grow plants, so finding solution for food production. The second type, and it was really unplanned, those are cosmetics and perfume players, because there is a huge problem right now on Earth on sourcing the plants, sourcing vanilla, sourcing ylang-ylang, sourcing vetiver, and with all this booming industry in getting, you know, organic products, there is a problem of how do you access the raw material, and we are offering a solution to grow locally using less resources, very, you know, rare plants, and that are very expensive, and people are flying them from all over the world. So some big names like LVMH and Givaudan, for instance.
We're going to have something in the moon.
When? I mean, yes. I mean,
and just the last example of your I think you're working in the desert
application.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And we're working in the desert. So we actually we raised around 3.5 million, and one of our investors is actually the sovereign fund of Saudi Arabia. So we're working very closely with them, and also with the UAE. We actually going to be at the World Expo in October to present our dome, because we're providing solution for desertic zone. You know, how to grow food over there, which is a huge problem.
Wonderful. So
we
Marco,
invite you in February to come to the great event we are preparing in Cannes, the World AI Cannes Festival. Maybe you can show how you will grow up plants in
I'd love to.
In the moon. That would be great.
I would love to. I would love to. Thank you.
So Marco, just give me 1 minute just to thank all of our wonderful entrepreneurs and speakers, and perhaps can you all put yourself back on video? Yes, please. Everybody put yourself back on video, and I will. I just really, you know, I think we've all learned so much, combining the artificial with the human, the importance of trust, the inference, the ability to, you know, reason, to deduct, the importance of all of this, not just in machines, but in our real life. And I just want to thank all of you so very much. I also want to give a big shout out also to Marie Herring. Marie, you must show yourself, please. And thank you. And now over to my dear and such an amazing chairman, Marco Landi. He has been a true innovator, and fantastic businessman and technologist, and we're so proud and honored to have him as our president of Institut EuropIA. So Marco, thank you so much for giving all of us this chance to do it.
Thank you everybody. Merci beaucoup, parce que je sorte de cette conférence vraiment contente de voir qu'il y a les femmes dans l'intelligence artificielle. Et quelle femme! Et tu nous as montré de l'Inde, de l'Amérique, de notre Sophia Antipolis. Et je sors avec cette certitude qu'on a un futur et dans la Lune et dans Mars. Ça serait formidable. Voyons si on a quelqu'un, pendant que vous êtes là, s'il y a des questions. Malheureusement, on est beaucoup en retard. S'il y a quelques questions, vous serez les bienvenus. Autrement, on vous invite. Je m'arrête là. Vous avez une question? Pas de questions? Je pense qu'on peut passer maintenant à boire quelque chose. Merci beaucoup. C'était vraiment formidable. Thank you, Candice. Bye.
Thank you all so much. And we'll see each other at our great world's first Artificial Intelligence Conference in Cannes, February 10th to 12th. We invite you all. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.